Welcome to the Situation Update for Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. Mike Adams here. Thank you for joining me. And over the last, 24 hours or so, three things have come true that I predicted here on the podcast. Thought we would go through those things. First of all, the balloons that were shot down in the sky. Now, I'm not talking about the original Chinese balloon with the platform, the EMP weapons platform. That was a really large weaponized platform balloon that can hold EMP weapons or hypersonic missiles, okay? I'm not talking about that one. That one was a very real threat to our national security because, again, it could hold EMP weapons. I'm talking about the three other balloons after that were shot down. You know, when the establishment was trying to distract us from everything else that's really important going on in the world, like the fact that the U.S. destroyed the Nord Stream pipelines, carried out an act of terrorism against Germany, an act of war against Germany. Oh, yeah, and the fact there's this giant chemical gas bomb that was ignited by government authorities in Ohio, which we covered yesterday. You're not supposed to pay attention to that. No, you're supposed to think there's aliens and balloons all in the skies, all over the place. And you know, CNN, that's what set me off. It's like, CNN is calling this? Give me a break. CNN is CIA-controlled garbage. So anyway, pilot audio was released in the last day. Yeah, the actual audio recording from the pilots of what they saw when they were flying around this latest object that they shot down. And if you listen to the audio, there's several pilots there. If you listen to the audio, they say things like, oh, the size of it, that would be challenging. It's so slow and so small, I just can't see it. One of the pilots says, and by the way, I'm reading from the Warzone website, which has a kind of a partial transcript of this. And then one of the pilots says, I wouldn't really call it a balloon. I don't know what. I can see it outside. Looks like something. There's some kind of object that's distended. It's hard to tell. It's pretty small. And then another pilot says, I'm going to call it a balloon. Like an actual pilot says, yeah, I'm going to call it a balloon. And then one of the pilots says, you can definitely see strings below, but don't see anything hanging below. You mean like a birthday balloon? Like a giant metallic birthday balloon that has strings beneath, which is exactly what I said that they're shooting down. They're shooting these down with missiles. I found out these missiles cost $400,000 each, these air-to-air missiles, and one of them missed. They wasted a $400,000 missile on a $5 balloon, and then they had to fire another missile, to shoot it down. At this rate, America's national debt is only a few birthday parties away from doubling or tripling. $400,000 to miss a balloon. Yeah, they're missing it because it's so small. And they described the color as metallic black, but it reflected sunlight. And then they finally got a lock on it with one of the missiles, and they fired the missile, and they blew it up. It looks like they fired the AIM-9X air-to-air missiles at these balloons. And of course, as I mentioned the other day, on my ranch in Texas, I get these balloons on a regular basis. They just fall out of the sky. And they're always metallic, by the way. They're always metallic. You know, I never thought to save these balloons, but it's probably, I don't know, a month ago I picked up one of these. Because they just fall out of the sky, and they're easy to spot because they stand out. You know, it's not grass and trees and leaves and whatever and dirt. It's like this shiny metallic balloon-looking thing, and then you walk up to it, and it's got strings, and it's like a blown-up, little torn-up metallic balloon that fell out of the sky. What happens is they're filled with helium, of course, and then someone releases them, and they go higher and higher and higher, and then they expand as they go higher because the air pressure is lower, and then at some point, the expansion of the balloon bursts the balloon wide open. It pops the balloon, and then at that point, the balloon falls to the ground, and that's where it ends up on my ranch. And yet, I didn't have to spend $800,000 of taxpayer money to bring down that balloon. It just popped itself and fell. Because that's what balloons do. And again, in almost every case, it has a little string, because that's what the kid uses to hold on to it, and then they let go. Mommy, go. And of course they have strings. So anyway, I want to thank the U.S. Air Force pilots for confirming that these are, in fact, birthday balloons. It's amazing. All right, the second prediction that has come true is regarding the Michigan State shooter that I reported on yesterday. Of course, this mass shooter that had shot people and killed some people, killed some students there in Michigan State. And I said that if this shooter turns out to be a white person, it'll be all over the media, all over. You'll hear about it for days or weeks. If this person turns out to be a person of color, you won't hear any more about it at all. It'll just be a giant cover-up. And sure enough, it was not only a black man, it was a black man who had a prior felony gun charge that was dismissed by one of these prosecutors funded by George Soros. So, and this was covered by the Washington Free Beacon. Ingham County Prosecutor Carol Simon ended mandatory sentencing for felony firearm charges in the name of race equity. And that's how this guy got back on the street, in the name of race equity. So the office of the Democrat District Attorney, Carol Simon, let this guy plead guilty to a misdemeanor gun charge instead of the full felony gun charge that he should have been facing from 2019 when he was arrested. He initially faced up to 5 years in prison for the felony gun charge. That was reported by the Detroit News. And then, of course, the Democrat DA has this soft on crime policy. So they changed the charge, they lowered it down, and they said that giving this man the full charge led to dramatic racial inequality. So they let him off with a misdemeanor so that he could go out and buy more guns, which he used to murder college students at Michigan State. Oh, and then he killed himself, too, by the way. He shot a bunch of students, and then he killed himself. And do the Democrats feel okay with this? Of course they do. They want mayhem and violence and chaos. They want more gun crimes, obviously, because they want to, cite all that in order to ban guns. So just as I predicted, black guy killing people, media silence. But in this case, it was even crazier, led off by a Democrat DA. Oh, also, one more prediction that all of you have made, or many of you have made, and you're absolutely correct about this, that gun-free campuses will have more mass shootings. You're 100% right. Of course, the insane, crazed left-wing shooters target, disarmed populations because they don't want anybody shooting back at them, right? So, of course, Michigan State is a gun-free zone. Of course it is. One more reason not to send your kid to college if you have a college-age kid. Don't send them to a college where they can't defend themselves. Because, like the DAs are just letting people loose on the streets to buy more guns and carry out more violence, even those who should have been charged with felony crimes. So, there you go. Go to a college where they have a concealed carry policy. Those are the safest places to be. And then the third prediction that has come true in the last 24 hours is that you heard me yesterday talking about this train derailment and the giant fireball, the gas bomb that was unleashed in Ohio, in Palestine. And I predicted that, a lot more would come out about this and that there was a massive cover-up taking place. And sure enough, today from Breitbart.com, health concerns grow as more toxic chemicals revealed on derailed Ohio train than first made public. In other words, the public was all lied to about this. Of course they were lied to. So Breitbart is now covering this. The fiery derailment of a train carrying toxic chemicals along the Ohio-Pennsylvania line spewed more harmful pollutants into the air and surface soils and water table than originally reported, based on fresh data made available Monday. So it says about 50 cars on the Norfolk Southern Railroad train derailed. State health officials were initially concerned about the vinyl chloride, which, of course, they set on fire. And then toxins like hydrogen chloride were emitted in large plumes of smoke during a, quote, controlled release and burn, which I've said is insane. If you want to control something, you don't set it on fire in the open air and and just release it up into the sky where the wind blows it everywhere. That's not a controlled release. That's just insane to use that term. It's not a controlled release. It's uncontrolled out in the open release. Controlled release would be like setting it off in a room where you have ventilation or whatever, or where you can neutralize it. This is an uncontrolled fireball of a giant chemical weapons gas bomb. And even Breitbart reports that one of the substances released was phosgene, a gas deployed as a chemical weapon in the First World War. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, it's like you're living in the trenches of World War I, and, you know, they're throwing mustard gas chemical weapons at you, but in this case, it's phosgene. So, a list of the cars involved in the derailment, since released by Norfolk Southern, reveals several more toxic chemicals than first made apparent following the crash. Oh, really? So what else did they set on fire? Ethylene glycol monobutyl ether. Yummy. Ethyl hexyl acrylate and isobutylene. That sounds flammable. Also in the rail cars that were derailed, and contact with ethyl hexyl acrylate, a carcinogen, can cause burning and irritation of the skin and eyes, shortness of breath and coughing. That's according to the CDC. The EPA said that it has not detected any concerning levels of anything in the air. The EPA is like, everything's fine, just go back home. What are you worried about? Again, massive EPA cover-up. EPA, what did Steve Coyle call it? The Extreme Population Assassins. That's EPA. And then we're working on a meme graphic, by the way. I only have a low res to show you here, but we have a little meme graphic I want to share with you. All right, here it is. I know it's only low res. We're going to put out a higher res version of this on brighteon.social or my Telegram channel. But on the left, if you're watching on the left, this giant smoke plume cloud rising into the sky. And the text that we wrote here says, the EPA says this is safe to breathe. But then on the right side of the meme, there's a plant, and there's some sunlight, and there's oxygen and carbon dioxide, and it's describing photosynthesis, and there's water coming up through the roots. So it's the photosynthesis process of a plant, and then there's an arrow pointing to carbon dioxide. And the text says, but also this is a dangerous toxic pollutant that we must eliminate at all costs. So that's the EPA. Like breathing in, you know, hydrochloric acid. What was this other stuff? Ethyl butyl isolate. What was this stuff? Ethyl hexyl acrylate. It sounds like a name of a female rap star, doesn't it? Hey, Ethyl hexyl. Sounds like a demon rapper. But anyway, all this stuff the EPA says that's totally safe to breathe. Imagine that. But carbon dioxide might kill us all. Might kill us all. We have to declare a climate emergency. But, oh, you set fire to 1 million pounds of toxic chemicals. Then it's like, oh, no emergency at all. Everything's fine. Return to your home and continue breathing. Don't you just find this amazing? That this is what the EPA has come to? I mean, it's almost like the Environmental Poisoning Agency. They're interested in poisoning the world. But of course, I called it. I knew exactly that this is what's going on. It's quite obvious, you know, from the start. So watch for more cover-ups and watch for more distractions. More distractions are on the way. And if you think that meme was fun, we have a new meme coming out, maybe tomorrow, called the Woke Food Guide Pyramid. It's the replacement for the USDA, the old-style food guide pyramid, you know, that had, like, grains on the bottom, and, like, legumes, and then it had, like, meat and dairy and cheese, and I think at the top was, like, maybe sweet, or there were carbohydrates in there somewhere, who knows. But we've replaced all those with woke foods. So you've got like crickets and mealworms, you know, processed soy with hormone disruptors, GMOs, rapeseed oil, all kinds of stuff like that. So we'll release the woke food guide pyramid of all the stuff you're supposed to eat in order to stay woke. All right, real quick, my friend Jonathan Landsman is launching the Fatty Liver docu-class on February 28th. which is coming up in about 2 weeks. It's free to watch, free to register. HealthyLiverClass.com is where you go register, and you can see a little preview there. Jonathan Landsman is awesome, and he's put together all these experts, and it says, discover the hidden cause of autoimmune disorders, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and even skin issues, plus how to regenerate and repair your liver naturally. And, for folks in Ohio, this could be really critical information to repair your liver. Being exposed to, what was that again? Ethyl butyl acrylate, or whatever that was. Ethyl hexyl acrylate, yeah. You might need some liver repair. So check it out at HealthyLiverClass.com. This is an affiliate program for us. It's free to watch, but you can choose to buy, I think, digital downloads and maybe even DVDs. I think he's actually offering DVDs this time for the class, because some people want a hard copy, basically. So if you choose to buy that, we do receive some affiliate compensation for that, but you're not required to do that. You can watch the whole thing for free. Again, HealthyLiverClass.com. Hey, I also want to mention something pretty cool. If you want to share Brighteon.com videos, we have just launched a new website with a URL that carries all the same videos, same URLs, except you replace Brighteon.com with freespeechvideos.com. And that's it. So go to any video on Brighteon that you want to share. Maybe you want to post it on Facebook, or you want to put it on Twitter, or you want to put it on, private messaging or whatever. And just take that whole URL of that video, replace Brighteon.com with freespeechvideos.com, and then you'll be able to share it. For now, until they ban freespeechvideos.com. And then maybe we'll roll out like banspeechvideos.com or something. Who knows? But we have to work around the censorship as best we can. Now, it takes our system about an hour or two to render new pages for newly uploaded videos like this. So if you're trying to share a brand new video, you might have to wait an hour or two before it'll work with freespeechvideos.com. But give it a couple hours and then it'll work, and then you can share it. So enjoy that new feature. Remember my song about I got my Ford EV truck. It doesn't ever clutch. It won't tow much. I think they're out of touch with my Ford EV truck. Remember that? So Ford, now from CNBC, Ford halts production and shipments of its electric F-150 Lightning, which is its, get woke, go broke EV truck, due to potential battery issue. You mean batteries don't work? So let me get it straight. You got yourself an electric truck, runs on batteries, and the batteries don't work. Yep. So they pause production. Now, how bad does the problem have to be if they shut down the entire production line? Is that costing them $10 million a day or more? It's crazy. They claimed that they had to halt production. It was a stop order. They issued it at the beginning of last week, and they described it as, quote, execution issues. Yeah, like they're executing the passengers in this death trap that probably catches on fire with a lithium fire that you can't even put out. That's the execution problem. So a spokesperson there, Emma Berg, probably woke. You should just call her Emma Wokeberg. She says, quote, the team is diligently working on the root cause analysis. Wait a second. She said the company is doing the right thing by our customers. Wait a minute. What about the trucks you already shipped? Huh? Wait, let me get this straight. Ford has been making these trucks and shipping these trucks. And then suddenly, just now, they realize, oh my God, this thing doesn't work. So then they halt the production line. But they haven't recalled all the ones that they already shipped out there. I mean, not to my knowledge. Maybe they've issued a recall. But are they going to recall them all? Say, oh yeah, we found out our batteries suck. You're like, what do you mean they suck? You could die. They can catch on fire. Or they just don't work. Or maybe they don't work and they catch on fire. Who knows? They're not really telling us, right? But CNBC is reporting there's no stop sale order for vehicles already on the dealer lots, which means that These batteries are so bad, they won't even make any more trucks for now. They've stopped all production, but they told the dealers, keep selling them. Keep selling them to people, because anybody dumb enough to buy an electric Ford truck is probably dumb enough to buy a broken electric Ford truck. You know, because pretty much they're all broken. That's what this says to me. So Ford said that they halted production also at the Kansas City assembly plant, a couple days ago, so that they could have the Super Bowl celebration. Well, isn't that special? I'm so happy they can celebrate football, but not make trucks that aren't broke and woke. I mean, it just shows you Ford's priorities. Like, here, make sure you watch the Luciferian, demon worshipping halftime at the Super Bowl, but don't actually make trucks that function. Now, halt production, but keep selling the ones that we already let go through. Don't tell the customers they're so stupid they're buying Ford electric trucks. The only customers dumber are the ones buying Chevy Bolt EVs. I mean, you have to be actually retarded to buy a Chevy Bolt EV. It is the most insanely stupid car ever. And Chevy had to recall every one of those. Every single Bolt they ever made at one point was recalled. Why? Oh, because they would catch on fire. Why? Because the batteries, quote, rare manufacturing defects at the battery supplier might cause the batteries to catch on fire. The only good news is that the Chevy Bolt has almost no batteries in it, which is why it doesn't go very far, so the fires were relatively small. It's like, don't worry, your Chevy Bolt has no range. That fire will burn out in 4 minutes, Just hope you can get out. That's the one vehicle that is properly named, by the way. If you're trapped in a Chevy car, when the battery catches on fire, what do? You bolt. You bolt as quickly as you can. Chevy Bolt. Run! Your ass is on fire. Run! I think somebody needs to send a message to Ford. Maybe if you would focus on building cars instead of the culture wars, then your cars wouldn't suck. Well, and your trucks wouldn't suck either. Who makes good cars these days? Who actually makes sense in the car making industry? And you know who makes sense? It's Toyota. Because Toyota is not buying into this EV nonsense. Toyota took a look at the EVs and they're like, that's just stupid. I mean, you can't really drive very far on a totally electric car. And they're dangerous. And it's not well proven, and you have to spend hours at charging stations. You can't tow anything. So Toyota is making hybrids, right? It still has a combustion engine, and it's got a battery pack. And then those two together can drive the powertrain when needed at surge demand moments. But it still has an engine to provide the power. I mean, that makes a lot more sense. Or even more sense is just get a diesel engine. Forget the battery pack. Just get yourself a diesel engine vehicle, and you don't need to worry about lithium fires. It's very simple. Get yourself a diesel. And, if you're in a car wreck with that and the fuel spills out all over the road, it doesn't just ignite because of a spark. Diesel is hard to ignite. Diesel's almost... I'm sorry if you've heard this before, and don't do this at home, but of course I've tried this. But, if you take diesel and you pour it into a bucket and you try to light it, it will not light. I mean, you have to aerosolize it, which is what a diesel engine does. That's why you have a fuel injector, in the diesel engine. It has to aerosolize it, and then it has to compress it with extremely high pressures, causing spontaneous combustion of the compressed aerosolized diesel fuel. Diesel engines do not have spark plugs. Did you know that? They don't have spark plugs because they don't need sparks, because they ignite just from extremely high pressures. That's why diesel engines are more robust. They work at higher pressures. Gasoline engines run on, of course, a much higher combustible or much more easily combustible fluid, gasoline. If that leaks out on the road and there's a spark, kaboom, like in the movies, your whole car catches on fire. Driving gasoline vehicles is a lot more dangerous than driving a diesel for that reason alone. Hey, you ever wonder what dogs dream about? You've seen dogs dream, right? They're sleeping and dreaming and their feet start moving a little bit, kind of like what we do when we're sleeping. Sometimes you move, because something's happened in your dream and you like jerk your arm or a muscle or a leg or something. Dogs, they dream, obviously, I think about being dogs, but kind of like the enhanced dream world version of being a dog. So they can be sleeping and then their feet are like moving and jerking a little bit and their breath is like that. And you can imagine in their dream they're like chasing rabbits and catching them all. They're like chasing balloons. Maybe they're running in the sky. Like maybe if you're a dog, you always wish you could run in the air. And they're running in the air chasing balloons with like U.S. Air Force fighter jets nearby, and the dog's job is to catch the balloon before the Air Force can shoot it down. And I think dog dreams must be loads of fun. It's probably running and chasing all kinds of stuff and catching everything, right? It's like the ultimate dog dream world fantasy. But have you ever been in a dream where you couldn't run? It was like you were running through molasses? Because that's one of the most common nightmares, by the way, in the human dreamology or whatever it's called. You think dogs ever have that? Where in their dreams, suddenly the dog realizes it can't run. And it's like, I can't run. And it's like, and it's trying to run extra hard and it's like slogging through molasses. You think dogs have dreams like that? Because I bet they do. I bet they do. I bet dog dreams are really similar to our dreams in terms of the variety. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them totally bonkers and crazy. I'm running on water, whatever. I think they have a very rich dream world. But my military combat dog that loves to swim, Rhodey, I threw a stick on the edge of the pond the other day, and he jumps in and swims for it, and he apparently lost track of that stick. And he saw this other kind of a tree branch that was partially underwater and partially above water. It was still attached to the tree. And he decided that must have been the stick. So he grabs it and he tries to swim away with it. And, it was attached to the tree. And he couldn't. And he was like, how come I can't get this stick? It's kind of like having a molasses dream, but in real life. So he's swimming. And he's got this branch in his mouth, and he's like, it won't budge. And I'm yelling at him, Rhodey, come on, that's the wrong stick, Don't drown trying to fetch an entire tree. And he just struggles for a few more seconds, and then he just breaks the branch, and he breaks it off. And then he swims back with this like 5-foot section. Like, oh, so that's how military dogs fetch trees. I see. Okay, good job, Rhodey. Good job. And I'm sure he'll be dreaming about that later. In his mind, like, by God, if that thing doesn't come with me, I'm going to break it off and then drag it. It's like that's how he operates. All right, speaking of doggy stuff, let's talk about doggy coins or Dogecoin, i.e. crypto coins. From the Wall Street Journal, crypto investors brace for more crackdowns from regulators. Officials cut off access to products and services that are vital to the digital currency business. This just happened. They just shut down the Binance stablecoin called BUSD. BUSD. It says New York regulators shut down any new issuance of the world's third largest stablecoin, BUSD, prompting investors to flee the coin. Maybe they drive Chevy Bolts also. Investors were fleeing the coin and raising worries about the future of crypto exchange giant Binance. And BUSD is from Binance. That's where the B comes from. Binance, right? The story also says the SEC fined another big crypto exchange called Kraken and forced it to stop offering a crypto yield product, where it's like, give us your crypto and we'll pay you these crazy, insane interest rates that aren't sustainable. And then you might lose everything, but in the meantime, you can think you're getting rich. That product is no longer allowed to be offered by Kraken. And let's see, it says there's a flurry of actions, investigations, regulations, lawsuits, and so on and so forth. CEO of Blockchain Association, which is an industry group, her name's Kristen Smith, She says, quote, "It certainly feels from an industry perspective like there's a crypto carpet bombing going on right now." Yeah, it's probably a pretty accurate description. Crypto carpet bombing. It says on Monday, $144 million worth of Binance stablecoin, BUSD, were redeemed for dollars. $144 million? Let's see. Binance experienced outflows from Sunday to Monday of $2.7 billion. Folks, I mean, do I need to say it here? The government regulators are bankrupting Binance. They're creating what's called FUD in the industry. You know, fear, uncertainty, doubt. Everybody in crypto likes to talk about FUD. So if you say anything against crypto, they're like, it's FUD, it's just FUD. Well, this is like government FUD. The government is dishing out some major FUD. They are catapulting FUD into the consciousness. And as a result, people are fleeing Binance like never before. And so the question is, you know, how's Binance going to stay solvent in all of this? Man, I might have to fire up my crypto wallet and see if I can withdraw my 87 cents or whatever I still have on. Oh man, the wallet crashed. Look at that. I may have lost my 87 cents. Oh well. The story also says that last week Binance said it would suspend US dollar bank transfers. What? You can't transfer anything under $100,000 in US dollars to or from Binance, apparently. Because a bank called Signature Bank, which had been performing that function, is pulling back from the crypto business, basically under pressure from the government. Essentially, the government probably contacted Signature Bank and said, look, if you don't start denying services to the crypto firms, we're going to, quote, audit you, we're going to investigate you, we're going to find some typo in your spreadsheet and charge you with criminal felonies, basically, is the way this thing goes. And so Signature Bank is like, no need, we'll just pull back and stop doing crypto transfers in dollars. That's what's going on. So the big question in all of this, and yes, I will get John Perez back on at some point here to talk about this, maybe next week. The Crypto Nostradamus, I call him, John Perez. Awesome dude. I'll get him back on, but he has been predicting the downfall of Tether for quite some time. And he's probably correct about that, because if the stable coins just start getting torn down by the government, then Tether is one of their obvious targets. They're going after Binance and Kraken. Tether's pretty much next. It was kind of like the financial equivalent of firing air-to-air missiles at balloons, isn't it? Because they're firing regulations at crypto bubbles. Is that too much of a stretch to compare those two? Because in my mind, visually, those are kind of the same. Like crypto bubbles are like floaty balloons that are up in the atmosphere, and they're getting shot down by government regulatory missiles. Okay, maybe that was a stretch. Sorry about that one. Oh, and here's a story out of Illinois. This is really great because, Illinois is one of the leaders in academia and churning out students that are just genius-level IQ people, pretty much going to dominate the future of the human race, all coming out of places like Chicago. Yeah, if you don't believe me, check out this headline. Wirepoints.org reports, quote, not a single student can do math at grade level in 53 Illinois schools. Oh, apparently I got this backwards. They're morons coming out of the Illinois school system, it turns out. Not geniuses, they're absolute morons. The headline continues, for reading, it's 30 schools, so can't do math at grade level, which means they can't do math, basically, right? Talks about this school called Spry Community Links High School. It's in Chicago. And it turns out that not a single one of its 88 kids at the school can read at grade level. It's the same for math. 0 kids are proficient. Not one of them. There's not even one Rain Man in there that can do math. Not one. And then they go through these 30 Illinois schools, like North Lawndale Prep, Collins. It's got 469 students. 469 students. how many students can read at the grade level that they're enrolled in? Zero. It's zero. Zero. I mean, you talk about just structural illiteracy. And you know that these people, the Democrat cities are just churning out ignorant, oblivious masses by the millions. And you know these people can never do math. It's not that they just can't do math now. They will never be able to do math. They will never understand how credit cards work and interest rates and compounding interest. They won't understand debt. They won't understand the future value of money today. They won't understand, of course, fiat currency, money printing, currency devaluation, where inflation comes from. None of this stuff. And so they will move through the world oblivious to the forces that are acting upon them. The whole world to them will be very confusing, like a dog running in the sky chasing balloons. It's like, roof, 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 roof. They have no clue what's going on. And this is America today, at least in the Democrat-run cities. Thankfully, outside of these blue cities, there are still some good schools and some good teachers and some well-informed students here and there. But mostly in conservative areas or Christian schools or independent schools, things like that, right? But not these inner city schools, that's for sure. But when you churn out morons in your public school system, you end up with a lot of morons running your state, which is Illinois. And here's a story from justthenews.com. Proposed Illinois legislation to require EV charging stations in every home. In every home, you're going to have an electric vehicle charging station in every home. It's called House Bill 2206 and Senate Bill 40. Requires every new single-family residence or small multi-family residence to have at least one electric vehicle charging station for each residential unit with dedicated parking. Aren't these the same morons that are also telling you that you're not allowed to have gas stoves in your home? You realize that the woke tards are now trying to determine all the appliances that are in or around your home, and they have a list, of course, because they're totalitarian lunatics. They're like, you must have these things. I'm like, what? EV charging station. You're like, I don't even have an EV. The Chevy Bolt already burned itself up in 2.5 minutes. It doesn't matter. You have to have a charging station. I don't want an EV charging station. You must pay for it. But then you're like, I just want to sit at home and make macaroni and cheese on my gas stove. Oh, no. You can't have a gas stove now. That's bad for the climate. No gas stoves for you. Like, what? I can't have a gas stove? No. You have to have an EV charging station, no gas stove. What do I cook on? Electric stove. Well, what do I do when the electricity goes out? You can sit on the toilet. But you're mandating low flush toilets. I can barely flush. Welcome to Illinois. It's on and on. It's all the changing everything. You're not allowed to live like a normal human being in these Democrat-run states. And then also, of course, they're unleashing violent criminals on the streets to make it a more interesting game. A game of dodge. Like dodge gunfire, dodge violent rapists and arsonists. See if you can charge your electric vehicle without it being stolen or fired.